Well, good Monday, everyone. We are tracking a significant winter storm, and it's kind of weird to look at because there's really two areas of winter weather. The first is going to be here across parts of the Appalachians, into the capital region, into Virginia, even into parts of the mid-Atlantic, Delaware, New Jersey. And then look at this. It's hard to ignore this heavy snow that's developing. And I'm going to tell you, some of the numbers to me are looking heavier than they were looking this morning. And you're starting to see that get reflected in the National Weather Service's forecast. We're going to look at that in just a moment. We're going to try to dive into every single area of the country. If I don't show you, I hope you see the map. I'll try to show everybody tonight. A very busy night for sure. And then look, once we take this model out through the weekend, another storm, look, on top of the snow that we're getting now. And then look at this. Heading into next week, a surprise storm. I don't know. I don't know about that. We'll see. The jury's still definitely out on what happens as we head into next week. Let's take a look at the warnings right now, because this is really important. And, I get it. A lot of times people say, how much is it going to snow? I don't know. There's 51 different models, and there's a ton. That's the job of a good forecaster, right? That's when it really comes down to deciphering what's happened in the past. And I can tell you one thing with this type of setup that we're seeing is this cold air damming that you get here, and you get more of a transition over to ice as your warm air aloft moves up from the southwest. But still, nonetheless, we've got winter weather advisories into parts of eastern Kentucky. Winter storm warnings have expanded a little bit further to the west here across parts of West Virginia, down into Southwest Virginia, and also back now into Kentucky. Winter storm warnings here from Louisville east to Frankfort, Lexington, all along the I-64 corridor to Charleston. Winter storm warnings, and then flanking that, we have a slew of winter weather advisories. As we move back into Virginia, into the nation's capital, Virginia, the Commonwealth, winter storm warnings from Roanoke, Lynchburg, north to Stanton, all the way down 64 to Richmond, and then north to D.C. Big snow on the way for D.C. In fact, if you look at some of the numbers, they are really impressive here. I think somebody's going to see 8 inches or so in some of these areas. It's pretty wild to see. I was digging through some of these numbers here at the National Weather Service, looking through some of their things that they've put out, some of their products. And if you go into the DC Metro, it's always interesting to look here at some of these warnings that they're putting out, some of the numbers. And look at this. These areas you'd recognize as Falls Church, Alexandria, Stafford. You're talking about 4 to 8 inches of snow, and that does include the District of Columbia. So quite a bit of snow on the way for the D.C. area, and it doesn't stop here, right? It gets a little bit lighter up towards Baltimore, but still some heavy snow. Lighter amounts up towards Frederick, Maryland, back toward Hagerstown. This time the heavy snow further to the south, from Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, east, across the bay here into the eastern shore of Virginia. Even winter weather advisories all the way down here. I think it's Kipta State Park is the name of this. It's a pretty cool place out here on the eastern shore of Virginia. Winter weather advisories, but north of that along the Delmarva, winter storm warnings all the way up to Dover, and then winter storm warnings here up to Dover, I should say, and then out to Atlantic City across southern New Jersey all the way down to Cape May. Flanking its north side, winter weather advisories here from Trenton, Philadelphia, west, just south of Harrisburg, but I think we're still going to feel some precipitation, but the heaviest clearly is going to be just to your south. All right, that's what's happening here on the east. There's another side of this too, plus we're going to get into those totals. So let's break it down with these watches first. Winter storm watches now are out for Lansing, Grand Rapids, north of Detroit. It does include Flint here into Michigan, and then south down toward Kalamazoo into the northeast corner of Indiana. Does include South Bend with winter storm watches. Chicago, winter storm watches for you. That goes now up to Milwaukee, not up to Green Bay, not to Madison, down to Rockford, and then we head southwest into Illinois, back toward Missouri. Winter storm watch is also up for a good chunk of Iowa. It does include Des Moines into the southeast corner here. And then this is for the heavy snow that's to come. Now we've got winter storm warnings back across Missouri. And the reason we're seeing pink here, it doesn't mean you're not under the threat of heavy snow to the north and east of this. It's just the confidence hasn't grown. We'll likely see this change over the next 12 hours maybe. You may see something come out tonight. But winter storm warnings up for Kansas City Metro. Winter storm watches further to the east does not include St. Louis. St. Louis not under any winter storm watches. I think there's still going to be some mixed precipitation here, but the heavy stuff's going to be up into Kansas City. 5 to 10 inches of snow, maybe locally more, and that moves west back towards Manhattan across all of north central Kansas, and there's going to be some heavy snow, I think, in southern Nebraska too. And flanking this on the southern side, winter weather advisories from Amarillo just northwest of Oklahoma City, where we're going to see some ice. All right, let's dig into the details now with the models. We're going to go through that. We'll start off with a big picture look here at the country. High pressure keeping us dry in the east for now. We've got a little bit of snow moving through parts of Iowa through the overnight. This is the warm-up act, if you will, for the snow for you guys. Maybe some light snow over to Madison, into Wisconsin, but the heavy snow starts to pick up late tonight into early Tuesday morning, right along the Ohio River into eastern Kentucky, and then into southwest Virginia and southern West Virginia. As we move through the day, heavy rain across the south. North of that, on the cold side, we've got the snow. It'll really start to pick up into the afternoon across northern Virginia, out toward Richmond, and then into northern West Virginia. Heavy snow going here also from Ashland, Kentucky, west to Louisville. We start to see the mixed precipitation try to continue to encroach on the southern side of this precipitation, but the heavy snow could get going pretty decent around the nation's capital. We're talking about Maryland, over to Delaware, north up to southern New Jersey. Rates could get close to an inch per hour, so some really heavy snow coming down at times, and then this moves offshore. We still are dealing with some ice across parts of Virginia, but warm enough on the western side of the mountains that we actually change over to rain across places like Charleston, down into eastern Kentucky, far southwest Virginia, and northeast Tennessee, where, again, down into Tennessee, not a lot of wintry precipitation expected. And now our attention turns back here to this system as it really gets amped up heading now into Wednesday. Snow starts to break out across eastern Colorado, Kansas, mixed precipitation, some sleet, freezing rain for North Texas, not Dallas, north of that though, up into Oklahoma, northwest of Oklahoma City, some freezing rain here, and then it gets really cold on the northern side of this. We're talking about high snow ratios, and that means the snow is going to be fluffy. It's going to blow around, and definitely could reduce visibilities with that. Winds will be howling out of the east to northeast into parts of Kansas City getting dumped on with snow, and then that continues further to the east. Now over towards St. Louis, I think we get some ice out of this, some freezing rain, some sleet. We may go over to plain rain, but the European tries to keep things mostly freezing rain. So very close here, but go north of that, heavy snow up toward Quincy, now moving into Chicago, moving into Milwaukee, big snow moving now into Michigan as well. If you're in Indiana, north of Indianapolis, I think we're going to see some freezing rain, also in central Illinois, but once you get into the southern parts of these states, it's just rain. Ohio, we may start as some mix up here towards Toledo, some sleet, some freezing rain, maybe even into Detroit too before we go over to a little bit of rain right here. However, the further north and west you go, you'll likely stay more frozen, I guess. Still cold here on the east side of the mountains. More precipitation overrunning that cold air, so the ice is going to stick around for a couple of days. That's going to cause some problems. And then the heavy snow now moves into Canada. Check this out. And then we're going to dig into the snow totals. I want to show you the active pattern that I think is ahead. Once this one's done, we're not done. This is not the end. So I hope you'll come back and subscribe. I mean, this is just absolutely an incredibly active month. I think February is going to go out with a bang too. If you're brand new to the channel, if the algorithm's hitting you, I keep showing up in your feed. I guess that means you like this kind of stuff. So I hope you'll subscribe. Come back. I'm Travis. I used to be a chief meteorologist many years ago on TV. I've been out of that for a while. Been following this kind of stuff. I'm a weather geek, maybe like you. So if you like this stuff, come back and follow, subscribe. We'll track this stuff together. Look how impressive this is looking for next weekend. I don't even know. I mean, what is going on? It's very active. This is a really weird look, though. You almost got what you call an antifront situation where you get your snow transitioning behind the system. I don't know that we see that, but we could see another winter storm. And then check this out. Not done. We're not done. Crazy stuff, right? So very active over the next couple of days. Let's talk about the severe aspect too. There is going to be some strong thunderstorms. This is for Wednesday across the deep south into Mississippi and Alabama. And check this out. Beyond that, with that next storm into the coming weekend, we could have another severe outbreak across the south. So something to watch too, in addition to the snow. This is the potential of seeing more than 3 inches of snow in the ensemble guidance. Definitely showing that. Very strong signals here and across the mid-Atlantic out to the coast. Beyond this, more snow on the way. Here's a detailed look. As we get into the totals, you can track out the time. The time is always right above my head. It's Eastern time as we head through the morning hours of Tuesday into the afternoon. There's that snow and sleet and freezing rain here across northwest North Carolina, southwest Virginia. But look at the far corner of southwest Virginia. You can start to see that warm air pushing up through Tennessee, also pushing up through Kentucky, changing things over to rain in some of these areas. That does include the far counties of southwest Virginia. But once you pop over the divide here, you start to get that cold air here that dams up against the mountains into the New River Valley, the Shenandoah Valley. We're going to be cold. And the further north you go into northern Virginia, I think it stays all snow. Out toward Richmond, we started some snow. We'll likely go over to some sleet and freezing rain. We may actually mix over with some rain, but the further north you go north of Louisa County, getting into the I-66 corridor towards D.C., heavy snow here, and that continues over into Maryland and into a good chunk of Delaware, and then again across southern New Jersey. And now we're looking at the next system. We're going to get into this storm in just a second. Let's talk about these totals first. This is official touched numbers from the National Weather Service. These numbers have come up since this morning. So now we're talking, well, I guess it depends on where you are. The official number for D.C., 5.2. So the official warning between 5 and 10 inches. It makes sense, especially if you consider that there could be some banding that's set up here somewhere that could dump up to an inch per hour. The highest numbers, I think, are going to be back here into the highest mountains of West Virginia. Somebody's going to get 10 inches of snow, maybe close to a foot. And then as you head east into Virginia, look at this, a solid line of 6 inches or more just to the northwest of Richmond. That stretches out into Delaware. And then right here, just along, I'd say from Cape May north up to Atlantic City. Once you get here north of that, just a few inches along the Jersey Shore and then up to New York City. There could be some accumulation, at least an inch or two, possible even out to Long Island. So again, this is the official forecast where things stand right now. If you flip over and look at the ice accumulation, this is going to be a problem because this is going to accrete on top of, and that's right, it's accretion. I always would say it's accumulation, but that's real world. But it's going to cling to everything, including power lines and trees. And now you can see how you're going to get a problem with the ice into Virginia, the mountains of North Carolina, up into Pennsylvania, and then even into parts of the Northeast, some freezing rain possible. It's in the official forecast here, and then back into the Midwest. You've got the freezing rain from Ohio into Indiana, Illinois, down into southern and central Missouri. Let's continue the snow tour, if you will. This is the European, by the way, from today, the midday run. If you went back to this morning's run, it was a little bit lighter. So I would say the models have trended up just a little bit, and the forecast is kind of reflecting that tonight when you look at those National Weather Service numbers. Let's move back to the west, and we'll work our way here. Here's West Virginia. We've talked about eastern parts of West Virginia. Again, back into this region, we'll likely start to see it transition over to some sleet, freezing rain a little quicker, so your snow totals are lower, but nonetheless, a little more than 2 inches possible. But once you head north along the I-64 corridor, moving from Lexington back to Louisville over to Huntington, to me, that looks like a good area for some heavy snow. Somewhere here, probably looking at 3 to 6, maybe even 8 inches in a few spots, locally higher amounts. Those amounts really trail off as you head back to the west across southern Indiana and southern Illinois. And to the north and west, that's the next snow, which we need to talk about that now. 2 individual pieces of winter weather. This one could be quite significant with some really cold air, again, across Kansas in place as we head into Wednesday morning. With the winter storm warnings that are up, again, many of you may be under winter storm watches still. Pay attention to the forecast over the next 12 hours to see if you're upgraded. I think we're going to see a lot of changes with those as we head into tomorrow. Now, as we move through the day Wednesday, the snow expands. It starts to push northeast into Illinois, into Missouri, Iowa. Now we're snowing up towards Chicago by Wednesday afternoon, and that snow picks up into Michigan heading into Wednesday evening. Still snowing hard here across Iowa, northern Illinois, but you've got the ice here across central Illinois toward the Great Lakes. Now everything lifting out of Kansas, out of Nebraska, north and east to Wisconsin, heavy snow into Milwaukee now, down to Chicago, and then into Michigan. Now watch Michigan. We started snow across pretty much the entire state, even northern parts of Indiana and Ohio. But as that warm air moves north, surface low pressure developing here, a lot of good upper level support here swinging through, and because your surface low is here, you're pulling a lot of warm air up here at the surface over top of that cold air that's in place. So there's your mixed precipitation from Detroit moving north into southern Michigan, up into this region, to central Michigan, up toward the thumb. I think it's cold enough for all snow. Cold back across Chicago, winds spin out of the northwest. The wind is going to be really strong and gusty. That snow is going to blow around. It's going to be blustery. It's going to be cold. And we may even get some lake effect snow going behind this, and then we start to dry out. Let's look at these totals, and we'll work our way southwest. We'll start across Michigan, and we'll go to the southwest with the snow here across Chicago. These numbers have definitely come up since this morning. The official forecast now for Chicago, 9.0. So it's easy to see these numbers are certainly coming up based on some of the new data. Somewhere in this line, everywhere here within these numbers are looking at 6+ inches with locally higher amounts. Very wild to see that be so consistent here on the models for the last couple of days, just putting snow in Chicago. I've had so many people come on the channel say, I'll believe it when I see it. And I think my response was always, me too. I mean, what do you want me to say? I'm looking at the same data that you're looking at. And now you're starting to see not only everything kind of coming together, even the forecast from the National Weather Service. Is there a bust potential? Yeah, I think there is, especially on the northern side of this and the southern side, especially here where you could end up seeing more sleet, more freezing rain, and that would eat into your snow totals. However, a strong signal for cold, fluffy snow across central Illinois up to Quincy. And I mentioned Quincy a lot, but you're also looking at some heavy snow across other parts of Illinois. Down to Springfield, though, a little bit of a mix here. I think that's going to keep your snow totals down up toward Peoria, over towards Davenport, Iowa. Some heavy snow here. The official forecast, over 7 inches of snow. And then as you move to the west here, again, those winter storm warnings are up for places like Kansas City, where we're going to see a good 5 to 10 inches of snow. So some really heavy snow here, and also up into Iowa. It's kind of hard to even see what state we're looking at. I've got to do this sometimes. I mean, look at it. Completely covering the state with some snow through tomorrow. Again, this is kind of the warm-up act, and then we're going to throw more snow on top of that. So don't let that fool you. It's not going to be snowing as much across northwest Iowa. The heavy snow, the second round, will be across the southeastern side of the state here over towards Davenport and then areas further to the south. Into Missouri. Let's go here now. Heavy snow across that Missouri-Iowa line over to Illinois. And then once you move south, especially across down towards Jefferson City, not nearly as much wintry precipitation. Over to St. Louis, maybe a little bit, maybe some ice, but the heavy stuff this time will be to your north. That axis kind of goes southwest to north and east. So your heavy snow into Kansas City now with winter storm warnings here. The official number looks like 8.4 or maybe even 7.8, depending on what side of town you're on. It's a big metro area. So you get the idea. Heavy snow on the way for Missouri and then back into Kansas. Let's look here. Southern Nebraska too. Some heavy snow with 6+ inches, and then into Kansas 5 to 10, I think somewhere in this area. Once you head south into the Oklahoma, there could be some snow, but will likely mix over to some ice too. That's going to cause some major problems, I think, anywhere we see that. So you may be looking at 2 inches of snow here across southern Kansas, and now you throw some freezing rain on top of that. Not a good situation. And further to the north, heavy snow across southern Nebraska. I'm going to back this up because some of this, again, falling tonight through Tuesday across northeast Nebraska, and then we pick the snow up as we head into Wednesday with those accumulations. Again, 6+, especially across southern parts of Nebraska, and then everything pushes off to the east, and then just to the west across Colorado, there's going to be some snow here too, especially across eastern parts of the state. Several inches here up towards the Denver metro area. It looks like 2 to 4 inches of snow. And if you time this out, you can see some of this falling over, a couple of days. So it's not going to be, especially into early Tuesday, but once we get into the afternoon and evening, it really starts to pick up. All right. Let's look at the model. I think this is interesting to see too. Look how heavy the European is this afternoon. This is using the Kuchera output version. It's the European, but it's fluffing the snow up based on that really high snow ratio content. If you go to a 10-to-1 ratio, it doesn't look nearly, we've changed models. Here we go. It doesn't look nearly as impactful, right? So you go from this to this using the same data. The difference is, this is a 10-to-1 ratio. This is using the cold air as a guide to how fluffy it could be. So it's going to blow around. It's going to be windy with blowing snow, drifting snow, and likely reduced visibilities. And there's the freezing rain outlook here across the central U.S. all the way down into Texas. We could see some strong thunderstorms across the west, and then we're going to track that next storm as it moves east. There goes the storm. You can see it moving through Colorado, some snow there, and then out into Oklahoma and Kansas, and then it's gone. Across the west coast, here comes the next storm that's going to move across the country. They're just lining up, guys. Big snows across the mountains of California, down into the Sierra. This could be a really impactful storm for not only California, but the rest of the country as we line things up across, again, I think the central and the southern United States with impacts, not necessarily snow, but maybe severe weather. This is going to bring rain into Southern California, maybe flooding rains too with that, with big snows across the Four Corners states, all the way into Arizona, and then this pushes off to the east. So by the time we get into Saturday, now we're looking at everything moving into Texas. Some rain starting to break out here. Some of that rain could be on the heavy side. And again, there could be some severe weather right here as we head into Saturday, especially into this region, into the warm sector. On the north side, how about that? Maybe some more snow for you for Kansas and to Iowa. This one doesn't look as strong to me up toward Chicago, but look, you're still in it. You could get another round of snow. And now we're going back to that severe threat on not just Wednesday, but now we're talking about Saturday. This is pretty wild to see. There could be a tornado risk here too. We're still pretty far out in time, but I think it's worth watching. And this pushes off to the east. And here's why. This is your upper level pattern. You've got almost a negatively tilted trough. All it takes is a jet streak placed in the right place with this negatively tilted trough, and now you've got all the elements coming together for a severe weather outbreak across the south. And then this moves east, and now we're looking at maybe more severe weather further to the east, and on the northern side, maybe one heck of a snowstorm. And if low pressure slows up along the coast, this is next Sunday. This is 6 days away, guys. I'm not looking at something 2 weeks off. So really active. And let's just stay here with the east because now we've got this weird storm the week after that. Now we're kind of getting out far. I'll give you that. We're talking about not this Wednesday. We're at day 8, day 9. The point with looking at this that far out is that it's still active. Very, very unique to see this much action back to back to back to back without a break. Usually you get cold and you get dry, but it is getting stormy. All right, that's all I got, guys, for now. If you're brand new, I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll consider coming back. A lot of you just joining the live broadcast right now. It'll be available for playback. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.